listening to the Fantasy Takeaway Podcast with Murphy Hamilton and Joe Pollock. Proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Subscribe, listen, take home the title.
What's up, Takeaway Nation? Welcome into our Week 5 preview episode. Jeff, Joe, glad to be with you guys again. I do have a question to start off this episode because I'm in a rut. Are you guys doing well in your league so far this year? Because apparently I'm the only one that's sucking it up.
3 weeks in a row at 7-1. Boom.
That's pretty solid. I had a kind of a rough week last week. I only won 6 out of 10 leagues. And so that was a little rough. But I've got 2-2-2 squads that I'm really disappointed in currently.
I'm due for a market correction. I squeaked by with a win last week when my number one running back that I drafted was Saquon Barkley. My number one wide receiver that I drafted was T.Y. Hilton. And my number one tight end that I drafted was Vance McDonald. Ooh. I won like 76-75 or something like that in a league that starts 2 flexes. It was absolutely disgusting.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest problem is injuries. I'm a heavy Tyreek Hill owner. I've traded for T.Y. Hilton. Just players that I have seem to go down, and my bench guys just aren't scoring enough to keep up with the Nick Chubb, Lamar Jackson performances I keep going up against. It's extremely bad luck.
Didn't you have some Antonio Brown in Dynasty too?
I did not. Thank goodness.
I feel bad for Antonio Brown owners in Dynasty because they were like, that had to have been such a roller coaster all off season.
And you couldn't get anything for him. You couldn't trade him or anything.
There was like one moment where you could have right when he went to the Patriots, and that was the only time all off season.
Yep.
Now, you might be getting Killer Bees confused because I did have Le'Veon Bell, and that was a roller coaster in itself. But
there you go. But he's going to be nice this year. He's got a massive target share.
Yeah, it just depends on if he can stay healthy. That year away from football, taking all these hits, I'm worried about it. Not super worried, but it is a concern.
I think that having the early bye is a good thing for Le'Veon Bell, and I think that you've gotten through the part where he's getting back into football shape. I think he's there now.
I just can't wait for Darnold to return. When Darnold comes back, I feel like Le'Veon Bell will have better performances. But without him in there, they're just focusing on Le'Veon Bell because he's the main part of their offense now.
Do you guys want a quick side note on that? Because when he comes back, I feel like there are some opportunities on the waiver wire that we didn't mention on the last show.
Like what?
I think Jamison Crowder is a guy that I've seen him everywhere. And he was getting a huge target share. He's not a guy that's getting downfield usage. He's not a guy that's going to smash for you, but also Robbie Anderson's been dropped all over the place. So you've got a ceiling and a floor play out there on the waiver wire in so many leagues.
And if your tight ends are banged up, Herndon's coming back.
I have Herndon everywhere, man. Like I picked him up last week and I've just been holding him even in leagues where I can't put him on the IR with the suspension because I think he's going to be a big trade piece, even in leagues where I have guys like Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce.
Sure.
See, I jumped the gun a little bit on that. The one place I own Herndon in our main dynasty, I believe I traded him for a second-round pick at the start of the offseason before his suspension.
I don't mind that, though. I think that's solid value.
Yeah. I mean, it could be higher, but I didn't really want him.
Sure.
So, all right, well, let's dive into the show, guys. We got a lot to get into. We got news and notes, our injury roundup, cheap dates, what to watch for, and we're going to jump back in and do our Thursday night preview again. We did that last year. We're going to start it over again this year. Super excited. Y'all ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
News and notes from across the NFL.
All right, well, some sad news to start the show. Cardinals owner Bill Bidwell has died at the age of 88. Not really fantasy relevant, but that sucks.
Yep. It's always sad when things like this happen.
Yeah, it looks like Michael Bidwell's going to take over. So at least there's a succession plan. So we don't need to worry about, wholesale changes for a franchise, changing owners.
At least he can eternally have Larry Fitzgerald on the roster. He never got to watch Larry retire.
Yeah, that's nice.
Way to see the silver lining, Murph. Good job.
I'm always about silver lining. Next up, the Patriots are showing signs of mortality today as it was announced that kicker Steven Gostkowski will be placed on IR after a hip surgery. Now let's all hope they sign Blair Walsh.
Kickers suck.
If they sign Blair Walsh, he's going to end up going to the Pro Bowl.
With a 90% make rate on extra points.
God. Vikings fans everywhere will be jumping off any building they can find.
For the record, Joe, as a Broncos fan, you shouldn't say kickers suck. Kickers are the reasons that we had at least 2 of our losses.
Sure. Losses are a good thing for a team that needs to get a quarterback in the draft.
Tua.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but I want him. All right, moving right along. More potential drama in the NFL as Vikings wide receiver Stephon Diggs was a non-injury, did not participate on Wednesday. Red flag?
I think there's something to look at here. I certainly wouldn't be dropping him or trading him low. I think he's still a buy low for me, but it's weird. Is he a DNP because he is getting traded tomorrow? Is that what's going on here?
Or is it similar to the Ramsey situation where they've got him listed with a back injury, but it feels like they're just kind of playing hardball and saying, we're not going to trade you?
That's the weird thing, is he's not listed with an injury at all.
This could be nothing. It could be as simple as he has something going on personally and couldn't be there and he didn't report for whatever reason. And, maybe they're just not wanting to disclose his personal information, which could be fine too. I mean, I saw a bunch of trade stuff getting bandied about Twitter, but I didn't see it from reputable sources. I wasn't seeing anything from Schefter or, the NFL account or anywhere else. So, I think, if you're holding Diggs right now, you're just kind of holding him. You're not going to try and trade him. You're not hoping for a trade. He's kind of stuck until this Vikings offense turns the corner.
What's your ideal what if scenario? Like, what if Stephon Diggs got traded to? What's the best situation?
Ooh. I don't know that I have like a place that is just a wide receiver away. I don't know that I see that. There's some places that could use an alpha dog wideout. San Francisco comes to mind. The Giants come to mind. Even Philadelphia to a degree, because I don't really believe in Alshon Jeffrey. I'm just one of those guys. But any one of those places right now might be a better fit than Minnesota because Kirk Cousins looks bad and that offense can't figure out how to throw the ball. And it's, bad.
The worst part is the best situation possible is in the division, so it would never happen. If he went to Green Bay, could you imagine Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs lining up on the outside with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football? How do you defend that?
Well, you don't. You don't, and Diggs actually goes to the slot in that scenario because they're going to leave 4-3-7 guy Valdez-Scantling on the outside because he is tall and fast, and they're going to let him take the top off and just open the whole middle of the field for Diggs and Adams at that point. But yeah, there's no way the Vikings will send Diggs to Green Bay, in the middle of his prime with a brand new contract, basically. What do they have, 4 more years of control? There's no way. I think
it's 3 more, but yeah.
But yeah, still. So it's one of those situations where this guy's not going anywhere. I think we all need to just kind of pump the brakes a little bit. I think the more interesting thing here is Roquan Smith. I mean, he didn't play this past week for mysterious personal reasons, and now he's all of a sudden off the injury report and he's playing again. Like, these things just kind of come and go, and there doesn't mean that someone's going to get traded.
Can I put a sidebar out there? Patriots fans need to pump the brakes the hardest. I have seen at least 6 different times the photo of Stephon Diggs with a photoshopped Patriots jersey on. Stop it.
He's also getting hyped up to the Bills, too, because he followed like Jordan Poyer and everybody on Instagram. Like, come on.
What the player wants doesn't matter. Let's start there. This isn't baseball or the NBA where you get these full no trade clauses and you can control your own destiny. It's not a thing. And even if there's a deal to Buffalo, because Buffalo wants a wide receiver and they're willing to pay because they did try to trade for Antonio Brown in the offseason. I just don't know that I see that being a move that Minnesota should make at this point in the season, unless they're getting an impact player right now.
Agreed.
I love that you bring up AB because that's the example of players don't get what they want. Because when they do, this happens.
Then the life gods smite you.
Yes. All right, and the last bit of news, Saquon Barkley owners are given a glimmer of hope. He's lost the walking boot, and they have yet to rule him out for Sunday. I'm seeing a lot of people commenting on this, and they're saying that normally this injury would keep somebody out like 8 or so weeks, but Saquon Barkley is a normal human being.
Well, high ankle sprains are anywhere from like 2 to 15 weeks. You never know. It's just about the stability of the ankle and the amount of pain the player can play through. So you never know. Like, he could be back this week. I doubt it. And I kind of doubt he'll be back next week because I believe they play on Thursday Night Football the following week.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround.
I think Pro Football Doc said 3 weeks from the day the walking boot comes off. That's the average. So I think that's what we can expect. Maybe 2, but with that Thursday Night Football, I kind of doubt it.
Did you guys watch the video of him running around at practice?
He looked good.
Yeah, I mean, he looked fine.
Not great.
But he wasn't running full speed. He wasn't dodging defenders. Like, he was moving around a little bit. I'm sure it feels well enough to kind of jog around and do some of what I would consider the light work he was doing on the sideline. But I got to side with the Pro Football Doc here. If it's 3 weeks from the walking boot coming off, he's not going to play Sunday. He's not going to play the Thursday night game because, the quick turnaround. So that third game, you're basically 3 weeks from the walking boot. I think he's spot on.
All right, let's start off with the players who are now on IR. John Ross with a shoulder, Chris Nogan. Nogan.
That's right. He's a no-go anyway. Chris No-Go.
He's a no-go.
Yeah.
Chris
We're using him
no-go.
anyway. It's fine.
New nickname.
Chris Hogan with a knee and Dontrell Inman with a quad. Now out for at least, 8 weeks?
At least.
Yeah.
The good news here is 2 out of these 3 guys really don't matter for fantasy for the most part. I mean, you're not using these guys on the regular unless they're fill-ins. And John Ross, that's the one guy that people might miss because he's actually proven to be a pretty reliable part of this offense with AJ Green out. But this does open the door for the monster known as Auden Tate. This is a big dude. He's not particularly fast, but he's quick enough and he's got good hands. I mean, he's going to see a snap share go from probably 71 to 83% in that offense. He'll play 83% of the snaps this week. And then his touch rate, if he's getting close to 8% of the offensive touches, that's going to be a pretty nice little play for somebody. I would expect, this offense to put up enough points and enough yards for him to be viable as a play if you need a flex or a wide receiver 3.
Can we get some more Joe Mixon targets with John Ross out, please?
Probably not because the offense hates Joe Mixon. And I have so many
weird
rosters with Joe Mixon on them.
And the fantasy gods hate you.
This guy was just coaching a team that had Todd Gurley on it. Like, come on. Joe Mixon has a very similar skill set. Throw him the football in space. Let him get open.
He only wants to be like Sean McVay enough to get the job. He doesn't want to be like Sean McVay enough to, put some hair product in.
The funniest part about that was my line that I was going to use.
Oh, really?
Just now. Yeah.
You both are full of bad jokes today.
I'm full of bad jokes all the time. I mean, my nickname should just be Dad Joke.
Yeah.
Oh, it's happening. Let's move on to the guys that are out or likely to be out. We've got Jordan Reed, Hunter Henry, AJ Green, and Cam Newton all officially ruled out as of now.
So the guy here that really bothers me is Cam Newton. Cam has been struggling with kind of a series of minor injuries to major injuries over the course of the last several months, going back into the offseason. And now it appears he's been on this full vegan diet for however long. This feels a lot like the old Arian Foster issue. For those of you that are old enough to have played fantasy with Arian Foster when he was a monster for a few years, and then all of a sudden he started getting nicked up all the time. Full vegan diet, no real protein, no meats, nothing like that. His body couldn't recover. And I'm starting to wonder if the issues that Cam Newton is having right now with not being able to shake these injuries has anything to do with that diet. And it gives me major league pause. And I'm thinking this might be a situation where in a year or 2 years, if this doesn't change, this might just be Kyle Allen or insert other quarterback's name here. It's Carolina Panthers.
Their defense is playing well enough that they might not be able to salvage this thing with a high draft pick in a good quarterback draft next year. Like, they might be too good for that.
Yeah, and I don't know that Allen's a bad player, especially with Norv Turner calling the shots. I mean, he's cheap enough to hang on to, because even if they say, they're a middling team and they don't really add anybody there, they still have to get rid of Cam's contract. Like, they can't sign anybody. They can't trade for anything unless they can move Cam. But I'm really concerned about the diet issue, because if he can't recover from these injuries and his body isn't able to rebound from this kind of stuff now that he's over 30, this becomes an issue.
So to sum it up, stop treating your food like your fashion, Cam. Eat a steak.
Someone get that man a cheeseburger.
All right, moving right along. Christian Kirk with an ankle did not participate. Devontae Adams with a toe did not participate in practice. T.Y. Hilton still out with that quad. Deshaun Jackson with abdomen? You put a question mark here, Joe. I'm not sure.
I think, wasn't that injury listed as a groin when he got hurt?
That does sound right, yeah. So it's weird that it's changing.
I'm concerned about this. Is this a new injury? Does he have a hernia issue? The change in designation that I think happened is pretty concerning to me, but we won't know anything for at least a few days on this.
Yeah, and they're not going to really tell us a whole heck of a lot, because abdomen can be a lower abdomen area. It doesn't necessarily have to be the groin muscle. It could be something else in that general vicinity. Or maybe he was just doing some rehab from the groin and tweaked something in his ab. Who knows? But yeah, give it a few days. We'll see what it looks like.
And of course, the last guy, Mitch Trubisky with the shoulder. I want to ask you guys about Christian Kirk. If he does not play, I've seen a lot of Andy Isabella hype. Are you guys on that, or?
No, because unless it's total coach speak, they said that he's going to play on the outside. So all these targets that are being vacated in the slot by Christian Kirk, since they run 4 wide so much, sound like they're not going to go to Andy Isabella. I don't really understand why. I think he's a pretty solid player.
I like Isabella a lot. I liked him in the pre-draft process, but this was a guy that is absolutely a slot receiver. This is not an outside threat. This is not a guy you line up out there and put against an alpha corner. But when I look at this offense and I'm seeing Keyshawn Johnson has been pretty reliable. You know, they got the Trent Sherfield kid they seem to like. You have Larry Fitz. Maybe they just don't feel like he's ready to run the middle of the field yet, and they want to try and wear out some of those other guys first.
Yeah, and I want to play him on the outside. To me, sounds like I don't want to put him in my lineup yet.
Yeah, I'm avoiding him. Absolutely. He's not going to my lineup.
All right, let's talk about guys that are questionable to play. Josh Allen with a concussion, limited participant in practice. Devin Singletary still limited with that hamstring. And Sam Darnold limited with mono. Because that's weird still.
That is weird to me.
Mono.
Who you kissing out there? Sam.
I mean, that girl had a sign up at the ball game that she gave Sam Darnold mono. I mean, it was her. We know who it was. I'm going to point the finger of blame right at that lady.
She was a Patriots plug there. They sent her there for the sole purpose of ruining Sam Darnold's weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Can I send her a bill so that I can win some more of my fantasy leagues? Like, I get some more fab out of that?
Well, she didn't leave her Venmo on the poster there, Joe. But,
that's too bad.
I mean, I bet we could use Twitter to find her, though. You never know.
As football goes, though, Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, Sam Darnold, all players we're hopeful for?
Yeah, I think so.
Because getting a limited session in the first practice since a concussion is a good sign for Josh Allen. Singletary was limited or at least once last week, right?
Yeah, I think he might have gotten one session in. Did he get in Friday? I think he got in late in the week.
I think he got in Friday. So if all of these guys play, I think this is huge boosts for everyone around them. And Singletary, if he plays and Josh Allen doesn't, that's actually a really nice situation for check down king Matt Barkley.
Yeah, it just makes me sad for Frank Gore. I wanted to see a couple more weeks of the ageless one.
Don't be sad for him. He's already got a gold jacket waiting on him. Don't be sad for him. He's fine.
I mean, nobody's fallen forward for this many yards before. I mean, he doesn't run for yards. He falls forward for all of these yards. If you take his, 14,600 some odd yards, most of that is from him falling forward. He's only run for about 8,000 yards in his career.
Guys, I figured it out. I know who Frank Gore is really. He's just one of those bullets from the Super Mario games that you have to dodge all the time, just constantly moving forward.
You can jump on top of it and just ride it for like 3 or 4 yards down the field.
Because teams do that. They jump on top of Frank Gore and they ride for game after game after game.
I think that's pretty brilliant, actually. I'm in with that.
Joe, Photoshop it for me.
Got it.
All right, moving on to running backs. And of course, this also kind of points out that we had a slight typo. We already talked about Devin Singletary. Should have been in this part, but whatever. Jamal Williams with a concussion did not participate. Marlon Mack with an ankle did not participate. Wayne Gallman with a neck injury, limited participant. That's worrying. Josh Jacobs with an elbow and James Conner with his ankle. Worries?
I think we can almost say that Jamal Williams is ruled out and probably don't play him anyway.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Marlon Mack, I'm very concerned about.
Same.
Like, it's a bad situation there.
I mean, if he's out, though, fire up your Nyheim Hines shares.
Sure, and this might be a Nyheim Hines game anyway against Kansas City.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of balls in the air in that particular game, and that hasn't really been Mac's thing this season. It's been a lot more of Nyheim Hines coming in and just vulturing those targets. So in this particular game script, yeah, I might not be afraid of firing up Hines.
Keep an eye out for James Conner for sure. I don't know anything about this injury yet. I think it's too early to tell.
The way they were using Jalen Samuels in the last game, I don't think they're complaining if he misses one.
Sure, I love the Jalen Samuels usage. Like seeing both of them, those plays where they were running the jet sweeps and the jet read options with Samuels as a Wildcat quarterback were fantastic. Were those not some of the funnest plays you've seen this year?
For sure.
I think from that team they are especially. Because it's not something you really look to Pittsburgh and say, hey, they're going to line up in the Wildcat and start hitting us with some crazy stuff. That's not really been their MO. But pretty excited.
Why would you with Big Ben?
Right, exactly. So I think we're going to see more creative play calling from them as we move forward with Mason Rudolph because he's not, frankly, good enough to elevate the team around him to push them to victory. He's going to need to be that check down king and keep completing 11 passes in a row of under 5 yards.
All right, moving into wide receivers. Taylor Gabriel with a concussion did not participate in practice. Michael Gallup with a knee is limited. Kenny Stills with a hamstring limited participant. Paris Campbell with an abdomen injury. He did not participate in practice. Mike Williams with his back, limited participant. Travis Benjamin, Tyrell Williams, who has a foot injury still. Juju Smith-Schuster with a toe. Chris Godwin with a hip. And F1 Terry McLaurin with a hamstring. Shout out to Jeff.
Embracing it. Nice. I like that. I saw that all over Twitter after you said it. I didn't really see it before that.
Boom. You're welcome.
Jeff DiMatteo, the trendsetter.
Nice.
Yeah, no one's ever put those words in that order together ever in the history of humanity.
And now you have it recorded, so you can listen to it later and enjoy yourself.
It will live on forever now.
I think the guys that we really need to talk about here are Michael Gallup and Juju Smith-Schuster, because Michael Gallup sounds like he's trending in the right direction. Pro Football Doc said it'd be 2 to 4 weeks. That was generally what we were hearing after that meniscus cleanup. If Michael Gallup plays, that as a different offense, right?
Yes, very much so.
I think so. And it sounds like he was running in practice, and some of the other players were commenting on how good he looks coming off of that cleanup. So if he doesn't go this week, and I wouldn't deploy him this week if he does go, I do want to give him 1 week of playing if that's the case. He certainly wheels up next week.
Absolutely. So Juju, how concerned are we? Is this a turf toe thing? Like, do we know anything?
I think it's an excuse to give him a day off. He hasn't been getting the looks he needs in the offense, and I think they need to reassess his role and reassess how they're going to get Mason Rudolph to get him the rock, because they're not going to be able to continue to put up 28 points a game or really any viable points without having their best player on offense involved. So I don't know that this is a major issue. It's probably something super minor, probably just kind of a maintenance day off day to kind of get him calibrated.
Considering the fact that this was one of the toughest cornerback matchups for him all season, Cincinnati's not very good on the back end, but William Jackson is pretty good, and he spent a lot of time on Juju. Shut him down pretty well. Is Juju a buy low candidate for you guys right now?
Yes.
I agree completely. I would go buy him low anywhere I can.
Yeah, and the thing is the Juju owner is probably trying to sell the name brand right now. They're trying to sell the 140 some odd targets he saw last season. You're probably not going to be able to really buy him at a discount for another week or two. And I don't see him putting up any kind of numbers in the next week or two. So at that rate, you could be looking at a guy at the midpoint of your season saying, you know what, I can go buy Juju for pennies on the dollar. And he's a guy that ends up helping you in the playoffs.
I do want to mention a name here that we don't have listed on either the out or the wide receivers, but there was some news today. Apparently Tyreek Hill was practicing. They didn't really go into how much he practiced, but he was at practice today.
Yeah, I've seen information on that says that it's probably going to be another week or two from the Pro Football Doc and from other sources, but it's pretty encouraging. That 6 to 8 week mark could be pretty good. Like if it's 6 weeks, we're pretty happy.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's already been playing basketball and he's out running around doing things. I think he feels mostly okay. He's just not in football shape yet. They got to finish healing that section of collarbone. Was it right between his collarbone and the sternum, like where it all comes together there?
Yeah, it's the SC joint, and it dislocated behind his sternum, which it's more likely to dislocate in the same way if you don't let it heal all the way, which, again, is concerning for, like, your life because of the arterial situation around there. So I think they're going to let him wait another week or two at least just to make sure that thing's 100%.
Agreed. And if you don't have Hill and you've been riding Sammy Watkins or one of the other Chiefs receivers, now might be your window to sell. Yeah. Sell. Get out there and sell.
If Tyreek Hill doesn't play, I kind of like DeMarcus Robinson as a DFS play, side note, because he had a massive air yards share last week and he didn't catch any of them. That's not really common in a Patrick Mahomes offense.
Right. And I like DeMarcus Robinson too. I think he's a really good player. And, he's just stuck in an offense. It's high volume, but it has so many other playmakers that he's always going to be very limited.
All right, moving into tight ends, Mark Andrews with a foot did not participate in practice. Vance McDonald with a shoulder did not participate as well. And Delaney Walker with a knee injury. I guess the biggest name here is Mark Andrews, right?
Yeah, I'm concerned. He shows up on the injury report every single week. And if he doesn't catch that touchdown last week, he pretty much fell off the map.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that. It's got to be Mark Andrews. Vance McDonald's been mostly a disappointment anyway. And the Steelers even went as far as trading for another tight end. And so you got to wonder what his usage is going to look like moving forward. And with a new quarterback, we have even less of an idea. Andrews did need the tight end last week. You got 3 other tight ends that'll catch passes. Like this whole group's kind of a mess. But I love Andrews if he ends up getting healthy.
And finally, guys that are likely to play but still on the injury reports: Emmanuel Sanders with a quad, Amari Cooper with an ankle, Damian Williams with a knee, who was removed from the injury report, LaShawn McCoy with an ankle, and Vernon Davis is in the concussion protocol.
Let's keep an eye on Damian Williams, because if he practices in full every day, I think he's a guy that you can throw in your lineup immediately. I think Darrell Williams is basically dead. He's just going to take that whole role. LaShawn McCoy's still alive as long as LaShawn McCoy plays. But side note, is it Jeremy Sprinkle time as a streamer?
Nah, I'm not ready for that.
Not in that offense. No thanks.
All right. I think I might throw him in a cheap DFS tournament.
you have fun with that.
Is that like, are you like foreshadowing one of your cheap dates? Is that,
no,
or should we be segueing? Okay. I wasn't sure if that was like your shot of the segue and I missed it.
Nope, but we'll get there.
Segue fail.
I'm a big fan of Damian Williams too. I've got him on a handful of rosters and I've just been waiting for him to get healthy and get back on the field because I think he's actually a pretty decent player with good traits that can really shine in that offense when given more opportunity.
Cheap dates.
All right. For the second time this season, we are going to kind of change up how we do cheap dates. Instead of me reading off every single player and then you guys discussing it, I'm going to let you guys introduce your own lineups and we're going to talk about it that way. So Jeff, you're up first.
For my team, I'm going to start up with the quarterback. Go with the cheap guys first. I went with Chase Daniel at 4,800, playing against a banged up and otherwise suspended Raiders defense in a game in London where really anything can happen in these ball games. I think he's a worthwhile play and he's particularly cheap and it allowed me to pay up at some other positions. Running back, went with Chris Thompson. Washington's playing New England, and I got to believe that no matter who's under center, they're going to do something to get after the quarterback a little bit because none of these wide receivers are worth really, quote, taking out of the game. So they're probably going to remove the quarterback, which means a lot of check down opportunities.
I am really surprised at that point if you went Chase Daniels that you didn't go Tariq Cohen because what is his price this week? 4,800 for a couple more $100. I feel like he might have been a good play, a good stack.
I thought about that actually. I had my cursor over the Tariq Cohen name there where I was like, man, this is somebody I might want to roll with here. The only reason I didn't is that the London games, though I wanted the quarterback against the Raiders, I didn't know which parts of the rest of the offense I really wanted. London games can be a little unpredictable as we've seen in the past. I don't know if it's Cohen. I don't know if it's going to be one of the tight ends, if it's Allen Robinson. I just didn't feel great about a stack. I just felt good about him individually. So I went with Thompson thinking he's going to see double-digit targets against what's going to end up being a really good-looking defense against a really bad-looking offense.
If this was my lineup, I would go with the stack because I looked into last year's performance because we have some sample size with Chase Daniel and Tariq Cohen's target share shot up last year. So if last year is any indication, I think they both might be good plays. But I can't hate on the Chris Thompson play. I like it a lot.
Cool. Well, yeah, my next guy, the cheap guy I rolled with at wide receiver was DJ Chark. I don't know why he's still priced this low in DraftKings. I have no idea. This is a guy that's literally leading the Jacksonville Jaguars in target percentage, touch percentage in terms of the total offense, among wide receivers. He has 69 fantasy points, which is number one on their team, including quarterbacks and running backs. And he's sitting here at 35 fantasy points per 100 snaps, which is also number one on their team. He's the only guy that's really producing at any kind of decent level. And it seems like he just keeps doing it. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, he can catch. He's finally coming into his own. I think $5,000 is really cheap for him right now.
I love the weighted opportunity ratio at 0.56 for DJ Chark. My concerns are that Carolina is only allowing 33.2 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. And also that the implied total is really low for that team in this game. You really are hoping for a touchdown upside with that play. And I don't know how much there is.
And I can get behind that. I just know that as I'm looking at the wide receivers that are in that $5,000 or less area, there's some other guys I liked probably more at a cheaper value. And truth be told, you and Murph beat me to them. So I'll let you guys talk about those guys in a little bit. But I still love DJ Chark. It's hard for me to quit him because he really has kind of been super reliable and he just does keep scoring touchdowns. And touchdowns are fluky, but I mean, heck, if he's going to keep scoring them, I want to make sure I'm there to collect. The next guy I've got up here is tight end. I went Jared Cook, and I only went Jared Cook because at 3,400, the guy's got to do something eventually. I really don't have any other great analysis for you outside of he's a cheap option. He's a guy that can play. And I feel like in this offense, we're going to see Jared Cook being kind of like Santa Claus. He's going to work really hard and show up about once a year. And this week could be that week. So I'm going to roll with him. And then I took the Chargers defense as effectively a punt play here at 2,700.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can put up a defense against Joe Flacco, that's pretty good.
Well, I wasn't going to bang on your guy. I mean, because I was going against the Broncos, I tried to just kind of leave it alone.
If you call Joe Flacco my guy again one more time, I'm going to reach through this screen and punch you in the mouth, Jeff.
Oh, man.
Look, I really hate to offend you and your guy.
Oh, no. It's on now, Jeff. We were having a nice cordial discussion here before that, but this is over now. I'm going to crap on all your picks for the rest of the show.
All right, let me relieve the tension here. I do want to point out that when Jeff was talking about the comparison of Jared Cook to Santa Claus, it made me really sad that Joe doesn't have a drop ready with Will Ferrell from Elf. Santa! That's how I'm going to feel if Jared Cook produces this weekend.
I actually like Jared Cook as a play, though. Like, Tampa Bay has given up a bunch of points to tight ends, and Jared Cook's still getting a 13% target share in that offense. So we could see that number be a little higher this week. And if he scores a touchdown, he's absolutely destroyed value for you.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Alvin Kamara and why they're not throwing him the rock more, but it seems like it's going to be the Michael Thomas and Jared Cook show against Tampa Bay. And there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game, I feel like. Call it a sneaking suspicion, but I want some parts of that Saints offense this week.
Sure.
Okay, Jeff, so that was your cheap dates. We're doing this as an actual DraftKings contest this week, so you've got a full roster. Who are your more higher price guys that you're going for?
Well, first and foremost, I stuck Dalvin Cook in my flex spot. You know, the Vikings against the Giants, this offense hasn't been all bad. Dalvin Cook has been really, really good. They just can't seem to throw the ball. And if that continues against the Giants, I'm just going to go ahead and keep reaping the benefits. For 8,400, I'm going to take Cook, plug him in, and just allow him to anchor the team.
Love it.
I don't know if you guys watch Gridiron Heights, but that just reminded me of the new one they dropped yesterday. They have Kirk Cousins trying to throw a dart at a dartboard at a carnival, and Dalvin Cook just runs past him, grabs the dart, hits the balloon, and goes, "You did it, Kirk."
That's good.
That's about right.
Yeah, I had two other guys actually that I paid up. Well, I paid up for one, and then one was, I thought, surprisingly cheap. He just wasn't cheap enough to be a cheap date. Went and grabbed David Johnson as one of my two running backs at 7,500 against a Bengals defense that really doesn't have much at linebacker. And their safety play, they've got a couple of tacklers back there, but I don't know if they're going to use a safety to try and cover David Johnson coming out of the backfield. I'm expecting a few big catches from him. And if they decide to slam him between the guards like they have been the last few weeks, the Bengals aren't very strong in that area. This could be a week where he actually gets the yards that we expect David Johnson to get every week.
Yeah, just look at what pass catchers have done against those guys. Like Jalen Samuels. Jalen Samuels was pretty much a Wildcat quarterback / pass catcher, and he got 22.3 points last week. Matt Breida, 14.2. Raheem Mostert had a bunch of production in the passing game at 24.1. I think it's a great play, man, because he's going to have an 80% snap share at least in that game.
Right. And that's, I love that. So I felt comfortable using him as my running back. And then Michael Thomas was only 6,600. That felt low for me. You know, for Michael Thomas, this is to me an elite level receiver who catches everything in his zip code for 6,600. That's my highest priced wide receiver right now, and I'm feeling really good about it.
And Tampa Bay has been insanely efficient against the run so far this year on defense, but they have not been all that good against the pass.
Yeah, they're going to try and man him up with like Hargraves or something, and Hargraves isn't big enough to hang with Michael Thomas. So I'm expecting a big day out of Thomas.
Agreed.
All right, Joe, you're up next. Give me your cheap dates.
For many of the same reasons that Jeff went with Dalvin Cook as one of his pay-up options, I went with Kirk Cousins in a bounce-back situation against the Giants, and I'm not super confident about it at quarterback. I think that there is a world where Dalvin Cook just absolutely destroys in this game, but the Giants have been allowing an insane amount of points to quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, 37.5 in PPR. This is just normal scoring. This isn't even DK scoring, so it doesn't include bonuses. Josh Allen, 24.8. Jameis Winston, 31.3. I'm not even going to include Washington in this sample because they don't really have a quarterback. So I think Kirk Cousins is a pretty darn good play, especially if Stephon Diggs is gone. That concerns me a little bit, but I don't think he will be. I think he's in this game, and I think he's in a smash spot. As far as my running back goes, I'm paying down for Duke Johnson. And everybody's going to roll their eyes at this one, but he had 45 snaps to Carlos Hyde's 33 in week 4. He's 13th in the league in routes run for running backs. And Atlanta has allowed 5 receptions to the running back position in each of the last 2 weeks. Duke Johnson leads the league in a lot of the elusiveness categories that they throw up on Pro Football Focus. He's a guy that I think they just realized and remembered that they traded for him with a 3rd-round pick this offseason.
That's a really interesting pick. I'd really like to see less Carlos Hyde and more Duke Johnson, and I'm hoping this is the week.
Yeah, me too.
If not, fire Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, it's tough with Bill O'Brien. But, I mean, you traded so much away for him. You have to get him involved in the offense.
And that's what my thought is. When they gave up a 3rd-round pick for him and then they signed Hyde and then they actually played Hyde quite a bit, my brain was swimming. I couldn't understand what was going on. because the Texans no longer have their first. They gave it away for Laramie Tunsil. They no longer have their third, Duke Johnson. And their quarterback still can't seem to stay upright. It's hurting the whole offense. Like, they have to figure out a way to keep him vertical, and some of that's going to be check downs to Duke Johnson. You've got to be able to keep defenses honest a little bit. And I hope Bill O'Brien figures it out this week, because that guy can play and he needs the rock in his hands.
Absolutely. And the matchup is pretty good. It's not fantastic, but it's pretty good against Atlanta. My wide receiver is the one that I stole from Jeff, so I'm sure that he's going to have some comments on this one. But Auden Tate, I'm looking at the last 2 weeks. He's at a 94% snap share, 22% market share, 29% air yards market share, and a 0.53 opportunity rating. Come on. Like, that's great with John Ross in the lineup. Without John Ross in the lineup, look at what John Ross is vacating, a 19% target share and a 0.53 weighted opportunity rating. These numbers suggest to me that Auden Tate is priced about $2,500 too low, at least $2,000 too low.
Oh, I fully agree. This was actually one of my plays of the week. I feel like this is, I hate to use the term like, lead pipe lock of the week, but at 3,500, I don't think you have a better upside play at a comparable price point. I actually have him slated right now, projection wise, for between 7 and 8 catches, between 94 and 108 yards, no touchdowns.
And if he gets a touchdown, he absolutely destroys that. And Vegas kind of thinks that this might be a shootout. Like, the over-under is high. The defenses are pretty bad. The offenses like to throw the football pretty much more than anyone else in the game. So I love the Auden Tate play, and I think it's chalk, but it's chalk you can't get away from.
I'm really curious to see how chalky it is, because I only see a few people talking about him. I've actually seen some stuff on Twitter about Stanley Morgan, kid the Bengals just signed. And that gives me pause. I'm looking at that saying, okay, this is a practice squad guy at best. We need to pump the brakes on Stanley Morgan. I can appreciate his dad played for the Patriots for years and was a great player. And I can appreciate, you want to make that deep play and you want to try and pull that one out that no one else saw coming. I don't know that he's the guy. He's not particularly athletic, doesn't have particularly great catch rate in college. It's going to be Tate all day. He's a physical specimen, and he's going to be able to do some work this week against number 2 corners with Boyd Drung, the number 1.
I mean, just don't invest your money with Stanley Morgan, I think is what we're saying there.
Yeah, and he's not really a waiver wire pickup either. I would probably avoid that also.
I don't think you caught the joke,
That was
Jeff.
a white-collar joke, Jeff.
It was a white-collar joke.
I did. I missed it. Sorry, guys. I only get dad jokes, so if it's not a dad joke, I'm out. Sorry.
I mean, it's pretty close.
All right. Back on the rails. We're going with tight end here. I'm terrified about what I'm doing here because I haven't really loved what that Bengals offense has been doing so far, but I'm also going with a Bengal at tight end, and that's Tyler Eifert. Eifert has 4 red zone targets so far on the season, 3 inside the 10. He's run 23 more routes than CJ Uzomah. Arizona is the biggest factor in this. They're averaging 23.6 PPR points allowed to the opposing tight ends. I think it's a play it's hard to get away from at the price because he is cheap. He's almost a punt play, and I think he's in a smash spot.
For the record, when I saw this in your lineup, I sent a message to the NFL commissioner to have you randomly drug tested. After all our discussions about Tyler Eifert, this worries me for your mental health.
Has he broken his leg yet?
That's the key word, yet. This is going to be the week now that you said this.
If he can get through a half, I think he can score you 12 points. I really do, and that's pretty much 4X value.
Wait, was that Stanley Morgan joke a JP Morgan joke?
Oh, we're back to this.
No, Stanley Morgan is a different investment company.
Oh, I thought that was JP Morgan. I thought that was Chase now. My
different
bad. All right,
well.
I'm late. Sorry. Okay, and we're back to Tyler Eifert. He still sucks. Sorry.
I mean, he does still suck, but if he's getting red zone work against a defense that can't cover tight ends, I'll take it.
Yeah, if he gets 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown, you're taking that all day.
Value. All right, defense, mine's pretty simple, and I'm going right up against you. So Raiders defense, Chase Daniel, unpredictable game in London. Chase Daniel's career touchdown percentage is 2.7. That is abysmal. He threw 2 picks and only 3 touchdowns last year in 76 attempts. I think there's upside here. I think that we could see a Raiders defense that scores a touchdown or gets a couple of turnovers. And I don't love the play, but at the price, I cannot argue.
Well, sure, 2,700, it's basically a punt. And there's nothing wrong with it. When you're down there at 2,700, even below that on some cases, you're not really looking for very much. And if they get you anything, if they keep this game close, if it's 13-10, you hit your marker and you're fine. If they get you a turnover or anything, a couple sacks, then it's even better. But you're not looking for much. It might be just enough to get you what you need, though.
And it also, the biggest part of it is it gives you room to play your studs. So as far as studs go, I feel like I've got some pretty good plays. We talked before the show about Christian McCaffrey. I have him in my flex, and I think, honestly, he's probably the best play at running back this week with the volume he's getting. And one of the things I wanted to discuss here that we don't usually talk about is that in terms of ownership, if that player has a little green number next to their name, you can expect them to be a very highly owned player. So guys like Ezekiel Elliott this week going up against the Green Bay Packers, I think he's a good play, but I think he's a guy that you can fade for $400 more with Christian McCaffrey with a red or yellow number next to his name. And I think it's a fantastic play.
Yeah, I love McCaffrey. I mean, I obviously said Tyler Eifert sucks, just a second ago, but for as much as he sucks, Christian McCaffrey is amazing. He's the polar opposite of everything Tyler Eifert is. He's just so good at football. He doesn't really get hurt despite, his size and things like that and the way he's had to put on mass. This guy is fast. He can catch. He's going to get you 70 to 100 yards rushing, and then he's going to kick in, 10 catches for you. He's basically two players. You can't be upset about playing him at really any price.
Sure. And if you play all of these cheap dates, which I wouldn't suggest doing in a real DraftKings lineup, you can fit Ezekiel Elliott and Julio Jones too. And also Larry Fitzgerald. I think they're all really good plays. Larry Fitz, we already talked about extensively with Christian Kirk. So I think that all of the targets that Christian Kirk evacuated are pretty much going to go to Larry Fitzgerald. It's hard to get away from him at 6,000 this week, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I look at this lineup, I see a team where if you're playing the 1.5 million play action, the $100,000 the first game, you're probably going to get $6 to $15 winnings out of this. I just feel like
I'll take it.
Yeah, and that's not bad. It's a $3 entry, and you're getting enough out of your studs that even if your defense was terrible, let's just say hypothetically, Eifert and the Raiders D didn't play, but McCaffrey smashes, Fitzgerald puts up what he's expected to, Julio smashes, Tate smashes. You've got enough guys in this lineup where they could probably carry you to a solid enough day where you'll cash out. You'll get a few bucks out of it.
Hold on a sec. I'm going to go put that thing in the Thursday, Monday.
Is this like a euphemism?
No, Thursday, Monday. That's what it's. We got to do that because that's what this slate is.
Oh, gotcha.
All right. Well, I guess it's my turn. My quarterback, because I couldn't go with Jacoby Brissett for a third week in a row. I feel like you guys would have crucified me for that.
Nope. Do it, Murph.
I mean, what are you, scared?
I like Jacoby Brissett this week.
Wait a second. But my choice for this week is Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I Minshew.
So I gave you an opportunity for a drop, Jay.
I'm not going to argue with that. And it's not just the drop, man. I love the player and I love the style.
I just love that I can drink this in, that Murph is totally bought in now. He went from being a hater and now he's a convert. And you guys can't see it, but he's actually wearing some jorts right now.
You are damn right I am. It's like that stat I shared with you guys before this. His quarterback completion percentage was 69.420. So this guy is just the bomb. I love Gardner Minshew. On a real note, though, he had a pretty solid performance against the Broncos last week. That's a pretty solid secondary. And I feel like the Carolina Panthers are still hyped as an elite defense, but they're really starting to age. They're starting to show signs of kind of regression as far as being that defense we expected a couple of years back that's just going to keep you on your toes. I think he's good for at least 2 touchdowns. I think he's going to get you a solid, 17 to 20 points. And I like that at a Gardner Minshew. It feels safer than a lot of other plays. And again, I didn't want to go with the same guy 3 weeks in a row.
And if you just look at some of his PFF stats, like adjusted completion percentage is the thing that I really like to look at. 77.6, totally solid. Deep adjusted completion percentage, 50%. He's not playing like a rookie. He's playing like a seasoned vet.
And he's playing with a ton of moxie. He's making plays even when that O-line breaks down. And I think that's something that is really underrated. Most rookies can't do that. They don't have the ability to not only evade, basically break sacks, move around the pocket, keep their eyes downfield. And he didn't scramble out wide or anything outside of the tackle box. This is a guy that was literally living between the tackles in the backfield, making plays happen. And he still showed enough ability to move around and fire the rock out there. God, he is so impressive. I just love watching him play.
All right, my running back cheap date was Phillip Lindsay, $4,900 this week. last week was kind of a weird week for him. I feel like they're going to get him involved more in the passing game than they did last week. I like him. I think the price is good. That's my argument.
Yeah, if he doesn't get out there, I think this is going to be a negative game script for the Broncos against the Chargers. If he doesn't get out there in the passing down situations, and that's Royce Freeman's job, I have a lot of concern about this one.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys that can make your whole day at 4,900 on 2 plays. So I can't argue with it at all. He's an explosive player.
It doesn't make sense to me that the Broncos don't use him more often. I feel like they overused him a little bit last season, but now I feel like they're kind of underusing him. Like, I just don't get the sense that he's on the field and being utilized in a way where he can make those explosive plays like he did last season.
Royce Freeman has been more elusive and he's been better in the passing game. So I can see what they're thinking.
Yeah, I guess maybe you got to get the guy some snaps and get him into a rhythm. So, I mean, if Freeman's the guy you're going to get into rhythm, then I guess that's the guy you roll with. I just look at Freeman and look at Lindsey, and I just feel like I watch Lindsey and I see a better football player. But it's my own humble opinion, I guess.
All right, as far as my wide receiver, I went with 2 pretty cheap options. I'm going to list them both. Cortland Sutton at 4,900 and Mohamed Sanu at 4,200. I like both guys. Cortland Sutton's on pace for a good amount of
128.
Yeah, 128. Yeah, it's fantastic. And he's on pace for 1,200 yards. So he just feels like a pretty solid play for that amount of money. And Mohamed Sanu had 12 targets last week. The Falcons defense is not good. Injuries have banged them up. I know they traded for a safety, but there's still some work to do. They're going to be throwing the ball. If he's getting 12 targets, if he's getting 9 targets, that's a guy who in one big play could make your week, or in a PPR sense could do pretty well with 7 receptions for 75 or 80 yards. I like it.
I don't think we have to have too much discussion on those guys. I think they're both fantastic plays. I think every metric points to them being priced too low this week.
Yep. Double thumbs up here.
All right. My tight end for $2,800 was Noah Fant. This is more kind of a gut call. They're getting him more involved. He had a pretty good week last week. I just feel like they're seeing the athleticism out of this tight end. They're going to get him more opportunities. And of course, Joe Flacco loves the tight end. So the more comfortable he gets, the more Joe Flacco's going to go to him.
If you're looking for a home run play at the tight end position, look for routes run, look for snap share, and look for weighted opportunity. And he's getting all of those things more than his numbers suggest. So I think that's a really nice breakout play.
Joe Flacco might be onto something here because I think we all enjoy a tight end. The thing we've got to worry about here is that you've got 3 Broncos in your lineup and you didn't roll with the quarterback too? You weren't just going to stack up and run the whole thing?
Get out of here. I'm done with you, Jeff. We're both tired of your shit.
I almost, as a game theory play, I almost have to agree with him here.
No, I thought about it, but why would I rob Joe of the drop?
I mean, I can appreciate the drop.
The smile on Joe's face right now is worth it. That's,
So as I build lineups, it's actually one thing I look at is how invested am I in any one team? So that's why when I saw 3 Broncos, I was like, well, are they homer picks? Does he really just hate Joe Flacco? Yeah. But
I do think that we probably should mention that it's maybe not the best game theory play to play 3 players from the same team and not play the quarterback because you're already that invested. But I mean, that's one of the things we need to really focus on here because Murphy's never played DraftKings or DFS before this year. So those are things we probably need to mention.
All right. And I'll end here with my defense for a solid 3,000, right at the mark we put it at. The Seahawks defense. And I know it's the Rams, but Jared Goff just threw 59 attempts last week. They are tired. It was a 50-point game or 40 or less for them. So it's one of those things where on a Thursday night, they're going to be exhausted. They're going to be conservative. And I think the Seahawks defense is going to do well. Jared Goff is bad. Joe, you said that in the pre-show. Jared Goff is bad.
It's coming up on the Thursday night preview too. Sucks.
Yeah, so you'll get your chance. And they have a pretty good front in Seattle. So I don't really see Todd Gurley or Malcolm Brown doing a ton of damage. I mean, they'll get theirs, but I still feel like this is a pretty solid play. I think they're good for about 7 to 10 points. And that's without sacks, interceptions, stuff like that. So I like it.
What to watch for.
All right, let's fly through these things. In the early slate on Sunday, I'm going to be watching the winless Bengals square off against the winless Cardinals in what Vegas seems to think will be a pretty high-scoring game. Christian Kirk's out like we mentioned. John Ross is out like we mentioned. Larry Fitz and Auden Tate are in total smash spots. We've talked about it at length. Will my cheap dates stack with this barfy matchup pay dividends, or will it be my downfall? I can't wait to find out.
This week has to be a get-right game for the Vikings passing game. The Giants defense got fat last week, feasting on some truly terrible quarterback play by the Redskins. I fully expect Kirk Cousins to have another you like that game. this week and getting Adam Thielen and potentially Steph Diggs involved. I mean, if he's playing. If they can't do it this week, then the folks who invested in the Minnesota pass catchers are in for a bad time the rest of the way.
Jeff likes my cheap date.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3.
All right, the first one for me is important to a whole lot of fantasy owners right now. What will Austin Eckler's usage be with Melvin Gordon back in the rotation? We've seen Eckler perform very well in Gordon's absence, and their usage of him leads us to speculate that he won't disappear into a minor role. This may take a couple of weeks to fully scope out, but it could make or break your fantasy season, so stay tuned.
For my second one, we're going to have to sit tight until Monday night. The 49ers offense still has some questions despite being 3-0. Who's really the number one wide receiver? Does it even matter? Tevin Coleman appears to be close to coming back. How does that impact the other running backs? What do we make of Jimmy G? Is he going to be a fantasy relevant quarterback? I just really don't know. This defense in Cleveland is actually one of the more dangerous ones the 49ers have seen, so the test is real.
All right, so let's talk about the Bills and Titans matchup. While the Bills still have a lot to prove at 3-1, the Titans are a confusing team for fantasy owners right now. Against a very good Bills defense, can Marcus Mariota continue to not turn the ball over? Holy crap. Will Henry still produce consistent yards? I hope so. This is low-key the most interesting matchup of the weekend for me.
Last up tonight, I'm going to be watching the Seahawks against the Rams on Thursday night. Hold up.
Thursday night preview. Seahawks versus Rams.
See, that's a segue.
I love it. That segue has
Also,
finished.
Joe, like the drop. All right, let's dive into this, guys. Rams at Seahawks, like the drop. Joe, again, super nice drop. Like it said, this game is going to be interesting. I had a, cheap date based on it. So let's dive in. Let's start with quarterbacks. Jared Goff versus Russell Wilson. Are you guys playing Jared Goff if you have him? Are you worried about this matchup?
I'm worried about Jared Goff all the time. He seems like he can't read defenses. We talked about it pretty well last episode. I don't want to invest in a guy that doesn't seem to have the magic that he's had over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't love it going into Seattle. I'm going to pass on Goff. He doesn't do particularly well on the road and in hostile environments. And the Seattle defense isn't great necessarily, but they're not awful. I don't know that I see a great day for him. I'm probably going to avoid him if I don't have to play him.
What about Wilson? I mean, Wilson's great. So, I mean, with his legs, there's always an ability to score fantasy points. You can't bench him, right?
I think that the biggest consideration for Russell Wilson is the potential game script. Like last week, we got totally scripted out with Russell Wilson if we played him because they didn't need to throw the football. I think Jared Goff sucks, but I think this offense is good enough that we're going to see a competitive football game. And we could see something like we saw last week from Jameis Winston. I wouldn't be surprised to see a 30-plus point performance out of Russell Wilson. I'm playing him.
Yeah, I'm definitely playing him too. I look at Russell Wilson and I see a guy that on any given week can go for 303. And he can even kick in a few points on the ground. There's no reason to bench him. He should be one of those guys that you put in your lineup and you leave in your lineup unless, there's truly extenuating circumstances like an injury or something else. Or a bye week.
Obviously.
Yeah, well, that's the only time I take him out.
All right, let's talk about the running backs. You've got Todd Gurley on the Rams side, and for the Seahawks, you've got Chris Carson and Penny. So let's start with Todd Gurley. There is a lot of worry. His usage has been down. He's frustrated. What is your take on it? I'm going to start with you, Joe.
I think the worry is certainly that we're coming off of a short week, and he's obviously got a conservative workload going on here. The hope here is that his target share was much higher in a competitive game last week, and pass-catching running backs are absolutely smashing against Seattle. 37.1 for Alvin Kamara in week 3, 21.9 for DJ in week 4. I think he's a good play. If he's... Obviously, you're not benching him in redraft, but I think that I don't mind having him in a DFS lineup or two this week.
When it comes to Todd Gurley, I mean, yeah, he's going to see a few targets, but this Rams offense threw the ball, 64 times or some absurd number on Sunday? I've got to believe they're going to try and keep the rock on the ground. We're going to see a little bit of Malcolm Brown blended in here. I got this feeling, and I can't shake it, that Todd Gurley is due. And we're going to see one of those long runs, one of those explosive Todd Gurley runs that we love where he just breaks the line of scrimmage. There's no one there, maybe one guy to beat, and he just outruns him on a long run for a big touchdown, and everyone's going to forget all about these Todd Gurley knee woes. That's what I'm looking for.
All right, on the other side, Chris Carson, Penny. Carson's still the man, right? The fumbling issues have been there, but The Seahawks have said they're going to keep going with him. Are you guys of that same opinion?
Sure, but if you're playing the showdown slate, stack him with the Seattle defense just because I think that's the play. If Chris Carson has a huge game, it's going to be because that team has a lead.
Yeah, and Carson's getting 15 to 20 carries easy in this ball game. I think he's absolutely the guy to roll with. I don't have a lot of faith in Penny until he actually shows us a few linked up games back to back to back where he's done something productive.
All right, moving into wide receivers. There's so many in this game that are fantasy relevant. So let's start with just the Rams. You've got Cooper Kupp. You've got Brandon Cooks. You've got Robert Woods. I mean, this offense is lights out. You were talking in the pre-show, Joe. Cooper Kupp is the number one for this game, right?
I think he is. And I was talking to our buddy Mark Wempkin from the Roto Bros podcast. Total shout out here because I'm going to come on for his DFS breakdown of the main slate on Friday. We're going to release it on both of our channels. So bonus episode this week. He talked about how Cooks and Woods were the play against those outside corners for Seattle. And I just don't see it because the only outside receiver to score 10 plus points versus Seattle this year was John Ross in week 1. And I'm kind of looking at like that's an outlier performance. So on the flip side of that coin, every slot receiver sans Christian Kirk has garnered 7 plus targets and had 13 plus fantasy points. I love the Cooper Kupp play this week.
Yeah, I love Cooper Kupp too. Seattle likes to sit back in a cover 3 style defense. So generally speaking, the outside receivers are spoken for. They're kind of pushed between the defender and the sideline for the most part as best they can. That leaves the slot to kind of man the whole middle of the field. And a single deep safety is generally not enough. So you end up with either a slot corner, who most of them aren't good enough to play with Kupp, or a linebacker who certainly isn't good enough to play with Kupp. And they're not going to put a safety over the top to double team him in the middle of the field. So it's going to be Kupp all day. I expect him to see a lot of wide open green areas and a lot of catches. I don't know if I see him with a touchdown, though.
All right. Now, on the other side of the ball, you've got Tyler Lockett. You've got DK Metcalf. Which of those two guys, if you have to play one, gun to your head, which one are you going with?
For me, it's Lockett, and it's Lockett by a long ways. PFF has him as a +9 matchup with Roby Coleman. He's got a 0.57 weighted opportunity rating. And look, he plays almost the same role that Chris Godwin plays in his offense in Tampa Bay, and Godwin put up 41.2 points last week. This is a smash spot. I'm not expecting 42.1 points or 41.2 points, but I think it's a good play.
I wouldn't be shocked to see him log his second 100-yard game of the season here. I think that might be about the ceiling. I'm looking for 110 to 120 yards on the ceiling with a touch, but he's definitely going to see double-digit targets. DK Metcalf is likely getting manned up on Aqib Talib, and Talib's a crafty veteran. He's probably going to be able to keep DK at bay. If DK does anything of any real value, it's going to be on a shot play. He's going to beat Talib on a move and get downfield, or just plain out run him and catch a long touchdown. That's the only way he puts up a day better than Lockett.
Yep, Metcalf's a fade for me just because of the matchup.
Yeah, I don't want the boomer bust.
Are you sure about Lockett, Joe? He's a glorified punt returner.
Ha ha.
All right, let's move into tight ends. This is so weird to actually talk about these guys as if they're relevant, but both these tight ends are at least semi-relevant. You've got Will Dissly on the Seahawks, and you've got Tyler Higbee on the Rams. There's a lot of hype around Higbee. Are you guys buying into it?
Nope.
Pass.
Nope. Quick answers on that one. Will Dissly, though, y'all both like him.
I think Will Dissly has turned into a plug and play here because I think you have some information about this, don't you, Jeff? I feel like his opportunity's gone up every single week.
Yeah, so in consecutive weeks, he's seen 2, 5, 7, and 8 targets. Reception totals are going up to match. His yards have gotten a little stagnant. He's hovering between 50 and 60 yards, but he's getting a touchdown almost every week. It was 2 touchdowns in week 2, another one in week 3, another one in week 4. The fact is he's getting those looks by the goal line. So it wouldn't be a real departure, a real reach to say, hey, Will Dissly can see 7 targets, get 5 catches, put up 45 or 50 yards and get you a touch. And you're feeling really good about that line, you know, if you're playing any DFS slate or if you're just running them in your redraft lineup.
I'm so glad that I got him picked up last week because I had TJ Hawkinson as my only tight end in my big money league. Dissly looks like a fantastic play this week, and I threw him on over Hawkinson last week too.
I tried to get him, and I got beat to him. I ended up having to roll with Hawkinson.
I spent $12 on my fab, which seems pretty high, but for tight end that's going to produce, I feel like you've got to spend that.
And you might be able to sit on him the rest of the year. Like, this isn't a guy you spent $12 of your fab on and he's good for 1 week. You, depending on who your other tight ends are, you might be using him the rest of the way.
Sure, and if Hawkinson breaks out, I've got some massive trade capital.
Yeah, any tight ends, anytime you have 2 really high-end tight ends, you've actually got a pretty valuable trade chip because tight ends are pretty rare when you have them having an elite season.
All right. And finally, defenses. I've already given my opinion on the Seahawks defense as they are my cheap date this week. What do you guys think of this defensive matchup? If you're an owner of the Rams DST, you can't really bench them, right?
I don't think I would, but if there's another really solid play out there on the waiver wire, I would think about it. Like, I think Baltimore has been a defense that's been dropped quite a bit because of that last matchup. I'd probably play Baltimore over the Rams.
Yeah, potentially, but that secondary still looks pretty rough. I mean, they've been beat up. They've got some guys that, I don't know. They just don't look that good. They don't look the way they've always looked. And I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe they're just not as aggressive. They don't seem to be as disciplined, at least in the secondary in terms of, coverage assignments. They feel funny to me when it comes to the Rams D. I'm probably just going to grit my teeth and bear it, and I'll play them this week because this game, I don't know that we get over, say, 42 in this game total. So, I'm definitely taking the under if it's 42.
Vegas thinks it's 49.5.
I'm way under that. No way.
Cool. I'm taking the under too, but I don't think it's as low as 42. If you gave me the over under at 42, I'd bet $100 on it over.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I'm thinking I'm going. I think the touchdowns will be on the ground at the tight ends, and it's going to be a little lower scoring than people realize. It's not going to be the full fantasy bonanza because this happens on Thursday night games all the time. We expect these big, high scoring games, and then they kind of fizzle out because short weeks mean less prep, less install, and there's just more vanilla brand of football being played.
That is a tailor-made board bet, Jeff, and I had an idea earlier today that we should make a board bet sometime on this show where one of us gets a $50,000 budget and one of us gets a $45,000 budget for our cheap dates next week. Loser gets 45, winner gets 50.
That's fine. I can dig that.
At 42.
42? Well, 42 and a half.
I think we should just call it a push if it's exactly 42 and we'll both get 50.
All right, that's fair. I'm fine with that. I'm pretty easy.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board. All right, guys. That'll do it for our week 5 preview. Jeff, Joe, I had fun, except for the fact that I realized Jeff doesn't know about investing firms. That was
You only need one, my man.
Oh, man. All right, guys, we'll be back on Tuesday to see who was right in cheap dates and to give you our week 5 review. For Joe at Human Stat Sheet on Twitter, for Jeff at NFL_DiMatteo, and of course myself at MurphyFFT, or find us all in the NFL Fantasy Football discussion group on Facebook. Bye, guys.
Later.
Come on, unders.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Takeaway Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And follow the show on Twitter at FF Takeaway.